The passenger in front of you clears TSA without any problems. Then it's your turn. Place your carry-on on the conveyor belt, and an officer suddenly asks you to step aside. Nothing illegal was found. Nothing in your bag triggered an alarm. So, why were you selected? The truth is, airport security doesn't always begin at the X-ray machine. In many cases, the screening process starts long before your luggage reaches the scanner, and officers may already be noticing things most travelers never realize. In this video, we'll reveal 9 TSA secrets that can help you avoid unnecessary delays, protect your valuables, and understand what really happens behind airport security. Let's start with something that's happening while you're still waiting in line. Number 1. They're watching you before you reach the scanner. Most travelers assume airport security begins the moment they place their bags on the conveyor belt. But in reality, the screening process can start several minutes earlier. As passengers move through the checkpoint, TSA officers aren't just watching luggage. They're also trained to observe behavior. They look for anything that seems unusual or out of the ordinary, such as excessive nervousness, constant fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, or movements that stand out from the rest of the crowd. Of course, that doesn't mean those behaviors indicate someone has done something wrong. In fact, many completely innocent travelers feel anxious at airport security. Even frequent flyers can become stressed when they're worried about missing a flight or simply being in a busy environment. That's why two passengers carrying nearly identical bags can have completely different experiences. One walks straight through, while the other is selected for additional screening simply because officers decided to take a closer look. The best thing you can do isn't trying to appear perfectly calm. Instead, arrive with enough time, keep your travel documents organized, and move through the checkpoint naturally. Looking forced or overthinking every movement usually doesn't help, because sometimes officers don't even have to say a word before deciding your screening is about to become much more thorough. Number 2. The truth about the SSSS code. You hand your boarding pass to the TSA officer. They scan it, glance at the screen, make a quick mark, and hand it back. Most travelers never think twice about it, but sometimes your boarding pass can contain a code that changes your entire airport experience. If you ever notice SSSS printed on your boarding pass, it stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection. It means you've been chosen for additional screening before you're allowed to continue to your gate. That might sound alarming, but it doesn't automatically mean you've done anything wrong. In many cases, it's simply the result of random selection. Other times, it can happen because you booked your ticket at the last minute, paid with cash, or are traveling on certain international itineraries that require extra screening. If your boarding pass has this code, you should expect a more detailed security check. Officers may ask questions about your trip, inspect your carry-on more carefully, perform explosive trace testing, or conduct additional screening before allowing you to proceed. Unfortunately, there's no guaranteed way to avoid receiving an SSSS designation, but knowing what it means can save you a lot of confusion if your trip through airport security suddenly takes much longer than everyone else's. And while some travelers can clearly see that code on their boarding pass, there are other forms of communication happening at the checkpoint that passengers never notice at all. Number 3. The silent signals travelers never notice. Most conversations between TSA officers sound completely routine. A quick greeting, a boarding pass scan, a few quiet words between coworkers. Nothing seems unusual, but not every message is meant for passengers to understand. Throughout the checkpoint, officers often communicate using discrete signals, short phrases, or other internal methods that allow them to share information without drawing attention. In many cases, these communications are simply part of normal operations, helping officers coordinate screenings and keep the line moving efficiently. Most travelers never realize these silent exchanges are happening all around them. Like any large organization, TSA is made up of thousands of individual employees. Most officers are there to do their jobs professionally, but that doesn't mean every interaction behind the scenes is exactly what passengers would expect. What matters most for travelers is understanding that security decisions aren't always based on what happens at the scanner. Sometimes, information is quietly passed along from one officer to another before you even reach the next checkpoint. Fortunately, the next secret has nothing to do with hidden signals. Instead, it involves one of the easiest places in the entire airport to lose something valuable in just a matter of seconds. Number 4. The most dangerous place at the TSA checkpoint. When you reach the conveyor belt, everything seems to happen at once. You take off your shoes, remove your belt, empty your pockets, grab a bin, and try to keep up with the line moving behind you. For a few moments, your attention is everywhere except on your valuables. That's exactly why the security bins can become one of the easiest places in the airport to lose, or even have someone steal, your personal belongings. Think about it. Your phone, wallet, watch, or passport often goes into the bin before anything else. That means those items usually come out of the X-ray machine first. While you're still walking through the body scanner or collecting the rest of your belongings, your valuables could already be sitting unattended on the other side. Unfortunately, that short window is all it takes for something to disappear. There have even been reported cases of TSA officers stealing from passengers. One of the most well-known incidents happened at Miami International Airport, where two officers were caught on surveillance cameras taking cash from travelers' carry-on bags while distracting them during the screening process. Although cases like these are rare, they serve as an important reminder that your belongings are most vulnerable when your attention is divided. One of the simplest ways to protect yourself is to place smaller valuables, like your phone, wallet, passport, and watch, inside the zippered pockets of your jacket before reaching the checkpoint. Then, place the entire jacket into a single bin instead of spreading your belongings across multiple trays. It only takes a few extra seconds, but it can make tracking your valuables much easier and reduce the chances of leaving something behind. And speaking of items that travelers never get back, the next secret explains what really happens after TSA confiscates something at the checkpoint. Number 5. Where confiscated items really go. Most travelers assume that if TSA confiscates an item at the security checkpoint, it simply gets thrown away. But that's not always what happens. When officers determine that an item isn't allowed through security, you'll usually have to leave it behind unless you can mail it home or give it to someone outside the airport. So, where does it go? Depending on the item and local procedures, confiscated property may be stored for a period of time before being donated, destroyed, or even sold through government surplus programs and public auctions. That expensive multi-tool, pocket knife, or high-end flashlight you accidentally packed could eventually end up on a resale shelf instead of coming home with you. And that's more common than many travelers realize. Most confiscated items aren't packed intentionally. They're simply forgotten. A small knife left inside a backpack after a camping trip, or a multi-tool that's been sitting in a carry-on for months without anyone noticing. The easiest way to avoid losing something valuable is to do one final check before leaving for the airport. Take a minute to inspect every pocket and compartment of your carry-on. That quick habit could save you from saying goodbye to an expensive item at the security checkpoint. But here's something that surprises many passengers even more. Despite all the authority TSA officers appear to have, there are certain things they simply can't force you to do. Number 6. The limits of TSA's authority. It's easy to assume that once you arrive at the security checkpoint, TSA officers have unlimited authority over everything you do. In reality, that's not the case. Their primary job is to screen passengers, inspect baggage, and identify potential security threats before travelers enter the secure area of the airport. They can ask you to undergo additional screening, inspect your carry-on, and verify your identification. But there are clear limits to their authority. For example, TSA officers cannot arrest passengers. If they believe a crime has been committed, they must contact airport law enforcement, which is responsible for conducting investigations and making arrests. Many travelers are also surprised to learn that you don't have to place your passport inside one of the gray security bins. If you prefer, you can keep it in your hand or securely on your person while passing through the body scanner, as long as it doesn't interfere with the screening process. Understanding these limits doesn't mean arguing with officers or refusing legitimate screening procedures. It simply helps you know your rights and makes the checkpoint feel a little less intimidating. Because one of the biggest misconceptions travelers still have is about the machines waiting on the other side of the checkpoint and what they can actually see. Number 7. What airport body scanners really see. If you've ever felt a little uncomfortable stepping into a full-body scanner, you're certainly not alone. When these machines were first introduced, they generated detailed images that raised serious privacy concerns. Many travelers worried that the scanners revealed far more than they should. And for a time, those concerns were justified. But today's technology works very differently. Modern TSA body scanners no longer display detailed images of passengers. Instead, they generate a generic human outline and simply highlight any area that may require additional screening. Officers don't see your actual body. They only see whether the system has detected something unusual. The goal hasn't changed. The scanners are still designed to identify potential threats. The difference is that they now do it while offering much greater privacy than the earlier versions. If you're still uncomfortable using a body scanner, you do have another option. You can request a manual pat-down instead, although that may take a little longer than the standard screening process. And if that ever happens, there's something many travelers don't realize until it's already underway. You have more rights during a pat-down than most people think. Number 8. Your rights during a TSA pat-down. No one arrives at the airport expecting to get a pat-down, but if you're selected for one, it's important to know that you still have certain rights during the screening process. Many travelers assume they simply have to accept whatever happens. In reality, TSA procedures give passengers several options that officers may not mention unless you ask. For example, you can request that the pat-down be conducted in a private screening room instead of in the middle of the checkpoint. If it makes you feel more comfortable, you can also ask to have a companion or witness present during the screening. If you prefer, you may request that the pat-down be performed by an officer of the same gender. And if you ever believe the screening isn't being handled appropriately, you have the right to ask for a supervisor before the process continues. There's another request many passengers don't realize they're allowed to make. Before the pat-down begins, you can ask the officer to change their gloves. It's not a common request, but it is permitted under TSA procedures. Knowing these rights won't help you avoid a pat-down, but it can make the experience feel much less stressful if you're ever selected for one. And even after you've cleared the checkpoint and headed toward your gate, the security screening process isn't always over. Sometimes it continues behind the scenes without you ever knowing it. Number 9. Why TSA opens your checked bag. Once you've checked your suitcase with the airline, it's easy to assume you won't see it again until you arrive at baggage claim. But before your bag is loaded onto the aircraft, it goes through another round of security screening. In most cases, the process is completely electronic, and your luggage continues on its way without any delays. But if the screening equipment detects something unusual, or if your bag is selected for additional inspection, TSA officers may need to open it for a closer look. During the inspection, they may remove items, examine the contents of your suitcase, and then repack everything before sending it to your flight. If your luggage is secured with a TSA-approved lock, officers can unlock it using a master key. If it isn't, they may have to cut the lock in order to complete the inspection. In some cases, protective plastic wrapping around a suitcase may also be removed if it prevents access. Afterward, TSA is required to place an inspection notice inside your bag, letting you know it was opened during the screening process. That's why it's always a good idea to check your luggage as soon as you arrive. If you notice a broken lock, damaged contents, or anything missing without an inspection notice inside, you should report it as soon as possible. The more you understand how airport security works behind the scenes, the easier it becomes to avoid unnecessary delays, protect your belongings, and travel with confidence. If you learned something new today, don't forget to subscribe for more airport insider tips, travel advice, and behind-the-scenes secrets that can make your next journey smoother. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.